Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mangs and it's time for another Blue Lions Spotlight. Today we're taking a look at one of the more controversial figures to appear in modern Fire Emblem. Let's shine the spotlight on the ladies' man of Garreg, Sylvain. Born the second son of Margrave Gautier, Sylvain was plunged straight into a family filled with intrigue and drama. His older brother, Miklan, was born without a crest, and because House Gautier requires its head to bear one, Miklan was disinherited, and Sylvain was chosen to be the future head instead. This made Miklan extremely resentful towards his younger brother, and went as far as trying to kill Sylvain on numerous occasions, such as trying to push him down a well. Sylvain tried his best to mend relations with his brother, but things only got worse as they got older, and Miklan eventually ended up abandoning his family to become the leader of a band of bandits. Aside from his difficult relationship with his brother, Sylvain also struggled a lot with his own self-worth. House Gautier had always placed a lot of emphasis on the power of crests, to the point where they held more value than the person bearing them. For this reason, Sylvain experienced a lot of people wanting to befriend him, not because of his own merits, but merely due to the value of his own crests. In particular, girls would pursue him in hopes of their children becoming crest bearers, and this turned Sylvain extremely cynical, treating others with the same shallow attitude that they treated him with, seeing them merely as objects, things to play with. This quickly gave him a bad reputation as a philanderer, as he would frequently date girls for fun, only to dump them afterwards. Sylvain did form a few friendships growing up though. He became good friends with Dimitri, Felix, and Ingrid, and while they frequently tried to change his habits, they weren't very successful. In the year of 1180, Sylvain enrolled at the Officers' Academy at Garreg along with his friends, and became part of the Blue Lions. Even at the academy, Sylvain continued his habits of flirting with women, earning him a very bad reputation at the monastery. Sylvain is a person who has both good and bad qualities, though the latter tends to outshine the former. He is the kind of student most teachers would label as an underachiever, someone with potential to do amazing if only they applied their skills, but sadly someone who is content with just getting by with a minimal amount of effort. One of Sylvain's biggest vices is how he projects his own self-worth onto the world around him. Growing up with a crest constantly overshadowing his own merits, he is used to people treating him like an object. As a result, he treats others the same way, in particular women, who he sees as nothing more than objects to be toyed with. In Sylvain's mind, if they are only interested in him to make crest babies, he's only interested in them for their beauty and looks. Like with so many other characters in Treehouses, Sylvain is a victim of the culture surrounding crests in Fodlan. That being said, much of Sylvain's suffering is self-inflicted. While it is understandable that growing up with a brother who frequently tries to kill you is quite scarring, Sylvain's projection is his own doing. There are plenty of examples of people at the monastery being interested in Sylvain for his actual personality, like in his supports with Mercedes, and probably more than just one girl at Garreg was probably into him because of his looks or personality, not just because they wanted his crest. But Sylvain would never notice that with the way he views the world. Despite seeming nihilistic and shallow, Sylvain actually does care about his friends a great deal, and we see this clearly in his support conversations with Felix, Ingrid, and Dimitri. He may treat most people in a shallow way, but he does support and value his friendships a lot. He's the kind of guy to joke around when you get in trouble, but he'll always be there to help you get out of it. Sylvain may sometimes appear to act like he doesn't care, but he actually cares a lot. He just hides it behind a carefree smile. Sylvain has a unique post-timeskip battle model for both Cavalier and Paladin. Aside from Byleth, Sylvain has the most supports available out of any character in the game at 17. According to a survey conducted by Dream Magazine, Sylvain ranked as the 5th most popular character in Treehouses. In the 4th Fire Emblem Heroes Choose Your Legends popularity poll, Sylvain ranked as the 10th most popular male character in the franchise. Sylvain shares his English voice actor, Joe Brogy, with Linus from Fire Emblem Heroes. Sylvain starts out as the Noble class, and will join you at the start of the game if you pick the Blue Lion's house. However, you can recruit him over to your side if you have a charm stat of 25 and a C rank in Reason Magic. Or you can just obtain a B rank support and he'll seek you out on his own. If you play as female Byleth on the other hand, you can recruit Sylvain right away starting at Chapter 2, with no further requirements needed. Sylvain starts out with very good base stats. His strength and speed are both above average, and he also possesses good charm, with resistance being his only low stat. His growth rates follow suit, with his strength, speed, defense and charm growths being very good, and his magic, dexterity, luck and resistance growth being on the low side. With these growth rates, it is obvious that Sylvain is very much intended to be a physical unit, though he's certainly not restricted to this role. Sylvain's personal skill is Philanderer. Whenever he's adjacent to a female ally, he deals 2 extra damage and takes 2 less damage in combat. This skill is basically a mirrored version of Leonie's personal skill. Keep in mind that Sylvain has to be adjacent to a female ally. Having one as an adjutant won't trigger it. Philanderer is a pretty good personal skill that you should take advantage of, especially in the early game, and particularly on Maddening mode, where every single point of damage matters. Though as you continue to progress further into the game, it will stop being something you think about and more a bonus that you can take advantage of every now and then. Sylvain comes with a minor crest of Gautier, which has a 40% chance to raise might by 5 when using combat arts. This crest is basically identical to the one Ingrid has, it just has a different name. Combat arts are very useful in tree houses, particularly on higher difficulties like Maddening mode, where you have to rely on them a lot to deal with the very strong enemies that you probably won't be able to double naturally. This crest is very useful, though it is a little unreliable, as you don't want to rely on a 40% proc to net a kill, but the extra damage is always welcome. In terms of proficiencies, Sylvain is strong in lances, axes, and riding, while being weak in bows. He does have a budding talent in Reason Magic, which will unlock Black Magic Avoid +20 when tutored, but because of his emphasis on physical stats, Sylvain is pretty much designed to progress down the Cavalier class line, aiming to become a Paladin and then potentially a Great Knight. However, as mentioned many times before on these spotlights, Cavalry is pretty nerfed in tree houses with their penalties to strength and speed, so Wyvern Rider / Wyvern Lord might actually be a much more lucrative option, though you should absolutely spend some time as a brigand prior to that to unlock the Deathblow skill. If you want to have a little bit of fun, you could send Sylvain down the Black Magic route and eventually attempt to make him a Dark Knight. He won't be hitting super hard due to his low personal magic, but he might be able to become a viable dodge tank with his high speed stat combined with his budding talent. If Sylvain is recruited and present in your army by the time you reach Chapter 5, you have the option to keep the Lance of Ruin after you obtain it from Miquelon, though declining to return the lance to Rhea when she asks for it will make you take a small hit to your support points with her, but this is just 5 measly points, which is nothing in the grand scheme of things, so don't be afraid to do this even if you are working on unlocking her supports. Just give her a few extra flowers and you won't notice it. The Lance of Ruin is a ridiculously hard-hitting weapon that sports 22 might and 20% crit, though it is a little unreliable at 65% hits. With Sylvain's crest, he can wield it without taking damage, and also gets access to the combat art Ruined Sky, which inflicts a tremendous amount of damage and is effective against dragons and flying foes. It should also be noted that Sylvain is one of the few units to learn the incredibly strong combat art Swift Strikes when reaching A rank in Lances, which allows him to automatically double an enemy. While Sylvain is pretty fast at base with a 50% personal speed growth, he's not always guaranteed to double, especially not on Maddening mode, where certain enemies just have insane speed. Combined with his minor crest of Gautier and a heavy lance such as the Lance of Ruin, Sylvain can straight up delete units with his combat art, and it's a very worthwhile investment to tutor him in lances as a result. Despite having a very low base magic growth, Sylvain's list of spells is actually pretty good. If you tutor him in Reason Magic, he unlocks Fire at D rank, Bolganon at C rank, Sagittae at B rank, and Ragnarok at A rank. If you tutor him in Faith Magic, he unlocks Heal at D rank, Nosferatu at D+, Physic at C rank, and Seraphim at B rank. Overall, Sylvain is a very solid unit, combining great strength with high speed to become a powerhouse that is adept at dealing lots of damage on the front lines. With his Relic weapon in tow, he becomes an absolute nuclear bomb, taking out strong targets with high health bars. If he has any weakness, it's his rather low dexterity and resistance stats, making him a little unreliable with his hit rates and rather shaky against enemy magic. But these downsides can easily be offset with the right skills, some combat arts, and the right battalion. Just mount him on either a horse or a wyvern, and make sure he has a female companion nearby, and you are ready to reap the full benefits of this philandering rapscallion. I actually relate to Sylvain a lot on a personal level, and not for the reasons you may think. While Sylvain's treatment of women takes up a lot of people's attention, it's the way he views his own reputation that resonates with me. Having personally experienced a large group of people at school turning against me in my teenage years due to a few unfortunate incidents, I know what it's like to completely give up trying to change people's perception of you, and just start to almost revel in not giving a shit, wearing it as a type of armor rather than treating it as a weakness. While this kind of behavior can feel empowering in the short term, it usually ends up making you pretty miserable in the long term, which is why I actually sympathize a little with Sylvain and the reputation he's acquired at the monastery. That doesn't mean I excuse his actions or think it's a good way to behave, but I must admit, I felt a lump in my throat forming at some of his support conversations, and that is worth something. It's not every day I relate strongly to a character in a modern Fire Emblem game. In my opinion, Sylvain is a very different character from the previous skirt chaser archetypes we've seen in Fire Emblem before, such as Alec, Johan, Zane, and Virion, who all seem to chase women around for no other reason than them just being horny. He's a lot more relatable and in return a lot more interesting. His supports come off as extremely genuine, and while a lot of them start with him being shallow and flirting, they often evolve into something far more interesting towards the end. His supports with Mercedes are some of my favorite ones in Tree Houses by far. Because of all these reasons, I'm actually going to rank Sylvain a perfect 5 out of 5 stars. That doesn't mean I think he's a good or morally just character, quite the contrary, I think he is fundamentally a very flawed character, but that is sometimes what makes a character more interesting. Sylvain's design is really good. He comes off looking like your friendly neighborhood douchebag, but at the same time you just can't hate the guy, he's just too handsome. His lax attitude and carefree smile really shows off his core personality traits in a great way, and instantly tells you what to think about him, while also tricking you a little bit by subverting your expectations. I will say that I'm not a huge fan of his post-time skip design. It's not bad, I just feel like they could have done more with it. Still, I rate Sylvain's design a solid 4 out of 5 stars. I hate to sound like a broken record, but it is extremely difficult to rate the performance of the students in Tree Houses, as their strength varies so wildly depending on how you build them. In my playthrough of the Blue Lions, I made Sylvain a Dark Knight, and he wasn't fantastic. But that was a bit of a meme build, which was the whole gimmick of the run. I think that if you go out of your way to make Sylvain as good as he possibly can be, he can easily become one of your strongest students, though I don't think he'll ever surpass Dimitri or Felix in pure combat performance. Still, he's definitely worthy of a 4 out of 5 stars ranking. He's a very solid unit. Thank you so much for watching this Fire Emblem character spotlights. If you enjoyed it, consider leaving a like and a comment to help it out, and subscribe for more Fire Emblem content. I'd also like to give a big thank you to my script readers for helping me out with the script of the spotlight, as well as Cyan for his editing and design. Lastly, I'd like to thank my patrons for helping me out. You guys are absolutely amazing. If you want to help support me, even if it's just a few bucks a month, every little bit helps. If you want to watch more spotlights, you can also check out the playlist for more. Until next time, my name's Mangs, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.